It's the week ending Friday the 3rd of March, and this is The Week Unwrapped. In the past 7 days, we've seen a kerfuffle at the Oscars, the House of Lords strike back on Brexit, and President Trump's first address to Congress. But we're here to bring you some of the stories that passed under the radar this week. The big news not making headlines right now, but with repercussions for all our lives. I'm Olly Mann. Let's unwrap the week. And with me today from the week's digital team are Arion, McNicoll, Hollie, Clemence and Jonathan Harwood. And a big packet of Vocal Zone. I apologise in advance for the quality of my voice this week. I've got a cold. Starting the show with his top pick of the week, it is Jonathan. What have you brought with you? Well,
there was a bit of a ruck-up this weekend.
Can I just get some clarity on the ruck thing? What do we need to do for it to be a ruck?
I can't say. I am the referee, I'm not the coach.
Okay, sure.
You will find probably the solution with your coach, who has more ability than me to tell you what you have to do.
It was the rule. Well, no, we just wanted to know what the rule was, what the exact rule is.
If there's no ruck, there is just an area around the tackle on the ground, making an offside line, and that's it.
They have to be 2 metres from the ruck.
1 meter.
So if I clear someone out and get them in, then it's a ruck. No.
But during the tackle, that's a tackler.
Right. After.
Suddenly I'm 8 years old again and in my shorts trying to play rugby. That was French referee Romain Poit explaining the rules of the game to England rugby player Dylan Hartley. Jonathan, this was in the Six Nations game against Italy. How did this happen?
So Italy came up with an innovative technique to avoid a walloping against England, which involves some complicated rugby knowledge, but basically the game is based around a contest for the ball. When a player is tackled, the two teams are usually contest the ball, and an imaginary line is formed, which is the offside line. Now, what Italy did that was unusual was refuse to contest the ball. Therefore, the offside line never existed, which meant that they in turn were able to go past the offside line and interfere with the English attackers. It was a bit like, if you imagine an American football match, if the defensive side just go and stand next to the quarterback.
Right.
It's not a new tactic. It's happened before. It's not the first time it's happened, but it's the first time it's been used as a concerted game plan in a match. And it didn't go down well at all. Eddie Jones, the England coach, described it as a joke, said that the people who'd turned up to Twickenham should get their money back, whereas others have viewed it rather differently and said it was a legitimate technique.
So why is it your moment of the week?
Well, firstly, it's probably going to lead to a law change in rugby because the spectacle was a bit peculiar. At the same time, it worked in the sense that Italy, who lost 63-10 the previous week to Ireland, managed to avoid being stuffed like that. And actually they led at half-time, which, the greatest shock in the history of rugby was on the cards. England eventually figured out what to do. But what struck me as odd about it was the fact that this is an innovation, blue sky thinking, and we live in a culture where that's supposed to be applauded. Yet Italy were being absolutely castigated for doing something to mitigate their inferiority to England.
Yeah, why should the rules be changed just because a clever team think of a way around them? That doesn't feel right, does it, Hollie?
No, and I kind of disagree with the idea of a spirit of a game or a spirit of a rule. It's a bit how you get tax avoiders. If you want a rule to change, then change the rule.
Do you agree, Arion?
I personally flaunt rules wherever possible, but no, I think there's going to be times where you need to change a rule because you've either done something, you've created a dangerous situation for players and they're getting injured, or you've fundamentally found a loophole in the game that's really sort of ruining the game. And I'm not sure that this is one of those cases. I don't think that the game was being ruined by what Italy had come up with. And in fact, it's given us a talking point. It's given rugby a reason to be on the front page rather than some distance into the paper.
There is an English coach who used to coach the England Sevens team who's used this tactic himself, and he's pointed out that actually it's really easy to counteract because if there's no one contesting the ball on the floor, then you can just run straight over through the middle. There's a huge gap where you just charge through the middle.
England figured out,
eventually,
and it should be noted that they went on to spank Italy.
Precisely.
So they worked it out, and I'm not sure that this is a case where there was some major violation, but I do think that there's circumstances in which you might want to see rules changed in a game.
I mean, are the rules basically, Jonathan, too hard for everyone to understand if the players themselves don't appear to know all the rules?
Well, that was another sort of intriguing aspect of the thing, wasn't it? The fact that the England players just asking the referee, what's the rule here? They were like schoolboys asking the PE teacher for help.
Yeah.
I mean, and Dylan Hartley has subsequently said that he's going to get rid of the Bible in his hotel room and replace it with a copy of the laws of rugby. I mean, rugby, yeah, it's a very heavily codified sport. I mean, it's been likened to Trevor Chappell bowling underarm in 1981 at the New Zealand cricket team, and also Bodyline, you know, the 1930s series where there's two teams out there, but only one of them is playing cricket. This is what the Australians said of the English team.
It's true, mate.
Well, and that did lead to a minor tweak, but it also had massive, huge diplomatic consequences, didn't it?
Okay, that's a very articulate answer, but I asked you a yes or no question. Are the rules too complicated in rugby?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a difficult one to answer yes or no, really. I mean, for those who like rugby, no. For those who understand rugby, then yes.
But you'd imagine the captain of the England team likes rugby, but he seemed pretty annoyed about it at the time.
Yes, maybe yes. You could say yes.
Is it a case of a lack of England not thinking on their feet? Is that something?
Well,
that
this
they need to think about?
is it. I mean, it is that England were exposed as having the inability to think fluidly on their feet, which is regarded as something that we are supposed to do. You could say, you know, we have things like Amazon, Uber, and the iPhone that have been born as a result of sort of disruptive thinking, which is exactly what Italy were doing. Yet, when you look at companies like Uber, Amazon, and Apple, everyone goes, "Hooray! Look at them! Look at the way they're pushing the boundaries." If you do it in a sporting context, you get crucified.
I like how utterly unrepentant the Italy coach, Conor O'Shea, was about it. And he said, this is a tactic that we had rehearsed. It was part of our game plan. We called it the Fox. And he said something like, we've got many other animals up our sleeve that we're going to play later in the tournament. And I think it's legitimate.
I'm looking forward to seeing what's
the other
next out of the menagerie.
when the warthog comes in.
Yeah.
And are there parallels in other sports that if you only find the secret solution, you can subvert from the inside?
I mean, cricket's a classic example. There's always things happening. There's reverse swing, for example, a few years ago, the bodyline bowling. I mean, overarm bowling itself was an innovation when it was introduced because it used to be underarm, and then it was women playing with big skirts who started bowling with their arms above their heads.
Okay, so to take a parallel that I understand, it's a bit like when people sing in their native language only in the chorus in Eurovision.
Yes, if you like.
Holly, you're up next. What have you got for us?
This is one of the top police officers in the country, giving us an alternative option to deal with some of the worst offenders in the country.
And what I'm trying to make is a strong, evidenced, well-reasoned argument to turn around and say, with the volumes that we are now dealing with, we have to look at alternatives. When I started to lead this particular area of work on behalf of the police service, we were receiving 400 referrals every month for the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in America. Very recently, we received almost 5,000. Regardless of the fact that we are arresting so many men every month and safeguarding so many children every month, that we are struggling to maintain the capacity and the ability to deal with the increasing numbers that are coming through.
You mean you just can't cope?
We just can't cope with it.
Simon Bailey there, the National Police Chief's Council Lead on Child Protection, talking to Sarah Montague on the Today programme on Tuesday. You can hear the full interview on the BBC iPlayer radio app. Holly, it's clear that more people than ever before, adults and children, are getting the courage to talk to police about cases of sexual abuse. But it seems the resources aren't there to deal with it.
I mean, the statistics that kind of speak for themselves. There's been around 40,000 officers and staff cut since September 2010, which is almost 1 in 5. So the people around you are suddenly not there to investigate. There's budget cuts of 22% in about 5 years. I'm kind of sympathetic to police in what do they do? What is the answer? Do they have to stop pursuing certain crimes? I'm not convinced that the public will support any form of relaxed laws on paedophilia.
See, he said two things here, didn't he? He said we need to prioritise certain cases of child abuse above others. And then he also said that in the case of some of the more minor cases in this new structure, we'd be looking at rehabilitation rather than imprisonment. And it seems to me that latter point obviously is controversial. But the former point, I mean, you know, you might not be making a big song and dance about it because you want to send a very clear message. You know, if you look at child abuse imagery online, that's as if you abused a child and so on. But there is already, clearly, a prioritised structure. Clearly, if you're doing hands-on abuse, that is treated more seriously. Clearly, if you're a serial offender, that is treated more seriously. So that structure exists anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree there's a structure. I think by making it so public, perhaps that is what's caused the discussion. But I don't think it's just this area either. I think lots of areas are going to need re-looking at, purely because there just isn't money there to deal with it. Other things as well, like online fraud, things that weren't really around 20 years ago. It's the nature of crime reporting has changed. But whereas we as a society, like you say, in 10 years' time, look back, what are we going to let go? What things can we think about differently?
Do you think the government could have planned for this differently, Arion? Because we've seen a trend that more people are prepared to talk about what happened to them in childhood. It's not necessarily that there's a trend for more abuse.
Yes, maybe. But I suppose the way that the government would have planned for it would be to invest more money in policing. And that is not the direction that things are going. So what do you do if you're not given more money? And is it okay to take a different direction by trying to do this categorization of a crime, even as serious as paedophilia? And I think that's what's got people so concerned and upset, is that unlike maybe other areas of crime, like, say, drug taking, where you've got the low-level drug taker who's probably not as significant a criminal as the person who's the drug dealer, I think paedophilia, the crime is as bad at every single level, right? Like, even if you're consuming child pornography online, you're still sustaining and supporting the industry in some way, even in a small way. So I think that's why people were so upset about Bailey's comments, right? That it's
But
problematic.
even then, it is difficult to talk about, but even then, there are just, in common sense terms, must be a sliding scale. It's all bad. But, if you are accidentally stumbling upon an image of someone who's 15 when you thought they were 18, that is different, isn't it, to an abuse imagery of a 4-year-old child?
Maybe. And maybe also the question is about what you do with people who violate the law and whether it's appropriate to lock every single one of them up. And even if it's the right thing to do, is it actually going to stop a pedophile from committing crime to put them in prison and then let them out again? So maybe that's also the question, that it's not just inefficient, it's not just difficult to do, but it's also not going to help the problem.
And Jonathan, why do you think Simon Bailey actually came out and said this? Because it seemed to me an argument could be made that this was a sort of battle cry for more funding for the police, really.
Yes, he's not chosen the best subject, I think. If you're going to kick off that debate, you don't want to pick the most heinous example of a crime that and the country has got its antennae up about this the whole time. Is it's a touchstone issue. But he makes the point. I mean, you can't just.
If he'd chosen fraud, it wouldn't be getting the coverage, would it?
This is true. I mean, but I think the point he's making as well is that you just can't arrest and imprison your way out of a problem, and especially if you don't have the money to put people in prison.
Will it help by putting certain people in prison when they're overcrowded already and they can get drugs in already and there's riots already?
Well,
It
let's
doesn't
talk
sound
about
like the best
that side
place.
of the argument then as well, because the rehabilitation for paedophiles argument, again, if you're talking more about people who are casually viewing it online than necessarily participating in it actively themselves and harming children directly, has been made by various academics, who say that actually the figures of mostly men who are interested in this material are higher than you might think, and that actually rehabilitation is the best way. Talking to people, talking about why they're looking at that material is a more effective thing than putting them in a prison.
I mean, personally, I don't know whether you can rehabilitate someone that thinks in that way, but I'm not sure putting them in prison would necessarily, once you come out of prison, are you suddenly not going to be a paedophile? I mean, it's a deterrent, probably.
Well, you're going to be on
more
the
than
sex
a
abusers
change.
register, isn't it? So if anything, you're going to be more stigmatised. You think, okay, I'm a child sex abuser. That's what I'm into. It's even almost arguably harder to get talked out of, I don't know.
Well, that's true of any kind of offending, isn't it? There's sort of reinforcement of criminal behaviour, which actually occurs when you're in prison.
The question is, do you put people in jail to fix them or to get them away from society so they can't offend, or strictly for punishment? And I think often people are after the punishment as much as anything else, which is, again, why his comments are so problematic. Maybe.
Yeah, I think the idea about rehabilitating child abuse...
people are angry about it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to rehabilitate them, you want to hang them.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the attitude of the public. Yeah. So, it's controversial just to even consider rehabilitation for such a crime.
And this is the most extreme thing that's come out of a police commissioner's mouth on this subject. So is that the reason why it's your story of the week? Is this a landmark moment, do you think?
I'd say it is one of the biggest warnings that we've had, along with reports today saying that there's a red flag now from the watchdog, saying that there's serious under-resourcing and problems with the police being stretched and they're having to say no to things.
And I know from my history of hosting radio phone-ins that the thing that seems to get the public wound up is the lack of bobbies on the beat. This is the thing you hear. You used to see police on every corner, now you don't. That's when police funding cuts were in the spotlight before. But actually, to fund policing of this particular crime properly, you need the opposite of that, don't you? You actually need lots of people in an office on the internet investigating the deep web and so on. So actually, even if there was more money put into it, I'm not sure the public would be reassured because they wouldn't see it.
Yeah, so in a way he's been very honest, because it's unknowable what the police do to police those crimes, because they are off the streets, they're in the background. So you could just pretend that they're all there. The fact he said, look, you'll never know this, but we can't catch them, is fairly brave.
Arion, you're last today. What do you think this week will be remembered for?
So this week, Martin Scorsese has proven that if you win, you win, and if you lose, you win.
Scorsese, to quote Leonardo DiCaprio, is still making punk rock at his age. And when you have him again doing a gangster film, this also shows what Netflix is able to do with their budgets. The fact that how much money they make with all their TV shows, and now they're able to take it and say, we have the next Scorsese film. That is game-changing.
That was film reviewer Christian Harloff speaking on Collider's Movie Talk YouTube channel. Arion, Scorsese is making a new movie, but the reason you've chosen this story is because of who's funding it, Netflix. Now, is that because his last Hollywood movie tanked, so this one is effectively, to use old money, going straight to DVD?
Yes, I know that the idea that Martin Scorsese might be making a gangster film set in New York seems hardly shocking and the sort of thing that we might be talking about in 10 years' time. But no, I think the fact that its funding is now coming from Netflix, it's been sold on from Paramount to Netflix, and it's going to be under production there for the next couple of years. That is actually significant, and it does seem to be yet another step in the direction of Netflix's dominance of the movie and television industry. Scorsese's last film, Silence, totally tanked. It took £5 million in the US and another $5 million overseas. So this was a film that did really badly. It's one of Paramount's worst performing films of all time.
But it was always going to be, come on,
well,
it was a film about priests on an island or whatever, and it was
sell.
marketed as, this is going to be grim and depressing.
Exactly, yeah. Two Portuguese Christian missionaries go to 17th century Japan and struggle with their faith in God. Not an easy sell.
It's a passion project.
It's like the mission, isn't it? You know, what is it about tanking films about priests?
Yes, exactly. Arguably returning to something like The Irishman, which is a pretty much squarely Scorsese's bread and butter, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, apparently also Joe Pesci and Harvey Keitel. I mean, this is really him. This is going to be a big film potentially, and it's already
the movie version of McBusted, getting the supergroup back together,
or creating a new supergroup.
Yeah.
It's going to be presumably a big picture. It's already being spoken about as an Oscar contender, even though it hasn't been made, which is a bit premature perhaps, but I think it's certainly a statement of intent from Netflix.
I wonder, though, whether as a filmmaker of so many decades standing, Scorsese is really going to put his best work into something that's available only effectively on telly and the internet. You look at Woody Allen's Amazon series and it's entertaining, but it's not the best thing he's made for the last 10 years.
As a film fan, that would worry me that they're kind of stealing it from the cinema, because they're getting together these amazing actors and then you've got to watch it on your tablet.
It will still be on theatrical release.
Will it, or will they boycott it? Because lots of cinemas boycotted Beast of No Nation. That was Netflix as well, but because it came out on Netflix, the big cinemas were kind of angry that it was going to be everywhere available.
And partly that's because the cinema chains are often quite closely associated to the Hollywood studios, aren't they?
Yeah, presumably that as well. And I guess they thought they wouldn't make very much money off it if you could just go home and watch it.
Amazon have moved into film as well, and they have managed to buy The Sea, which they bought as a ready-made film, I think. But their model was slightly different to Netflix in that they gave it a theatrical release, and it's not actually out on Amazon yet, but it will be very soon. Netflix is slightly more aggressive in that they were planning, from what I've read, what their usual modus operandi is to release on Netflix and release into cinemas at the same time. So you have the option. But obviously Amazon have decided that they want to get the theatrical thing going first.
And I think there is a question about whether movie studios will be able to fight Netflix on this. Famously, in 2010, Jeff Bewkes, the chief executive of Time Warner, said looking at Netflix was like looking at the Albanian army and trying to imagine them taking over the world. You know, he thought that they were a pretty small fry kind of an organization and they posed no threat to television. And here we are, and they definitely do. So it is a question whether how long the studios are going to be able to hold out and fight them effectively.
But it might arguably be a way to get a kind of intelligent audience back into the cinemas, because I would say for the last few years, if you want to look for the kind of content that people used to call art house or indie or alternative, it's all streaming box sets, isn't it? You don't see anything like that in the cinema.
It's a flip. But the likes of Netflix are going populist, and the cinemas are going to go art house.
Well, I mean, like the films that seem to get massive distribution are basically sort of 12-year-old boy fantasies about superheroes, aren't they? Whereas if you want to see something that feels a bit more novelistic, then Netflix has been the place to go. I mean, it might get me back to the cinema if there was more of that kind of content in the cinema.
That said, Silence could have been that. I mean, it was Scorsese doing something quite ambitious, a little bit arty, quite risky, and it tanked, and the CEO's head.
I would have gone.
Head rolled.
I've got a 1-year-old son.
Afraid.
I've been to the cinema once this year. It was not going to be to go and see that. It was La La Land.
Right.
Does the film industry need to be worried, though?
I think there's a clear parallel between this and sport, actually. If you look, this is a sort of a man who's past his prime with a cast who are past their prime, who are being bought by a big money disruptor. It's a lot like the Chinese Premier League or American football in the 1970s when they brought up the ageing Pelé and Johan Cruyff and people like that. That didn't work out, but we've got it the same now with the Chinese Super League. They've got Carlos Tevez, Didier Drogba, all these sort of big old names that are being dragged over there.
So it isn't like that, but I'm enjoying the metaphor.
but they're being pulled out there by the money. I'm just wondering if Netflix are doing a similar thing.
I definitely see the parallel, but I think that we shouldn't underestimate Netflix's ability to make savvy business moves. I mean, the whole genesis of something like House of Cards came about through audience analysis. Netflix
I think that's bullshit. I've heard that so much. They reverse engineered that whole thing. They say, oh yeah, our algorithms told us that people like David Fincher and they like Kevin Spacey. Any idiot could have told them that.
Well,
David Fincher and Kevin Spacey come knock you on your door and say, hello, would you like to make a show with us? The answer's yes, isn't it? Then you come up with the story afterwards, surely.
But that script was being bandied about for quite a while, and Netflix pounced on it. So they recognised that it was going to resonate with their audience. I agree that it's possible that it's an important PR coup for them to be able to say, we recognise this. And
I just don't. I mean, an algorithm could not come up with transparent, could it?
True. And have they had another House of Cards on their hands subsequently? If they're that brilliant, then why have they not got another 10 series that are equally compelling and popular? That said, if we do give them the benefit of the doubt, I think there's every chance that this film could succeed.
I suppose if we're looking at why this story, because we've had lots of stories about on-demand video providers snapping up talent before. What is it? Is it just the blue chip quality of the talent? I mean, Scorsese, you don't really get much bigger, do you?
I think that's it. It's pretty unarguable, and particularly if that cast comes together. It's hard to imagine that it's going to be another Expendables 3. This is actual cinema. It's going to be, let's hope, a good film. So, yeah, it does seem like it could be a tipping point.
And with that, our group of Expendables have expended. That is it from this edition of The Week Unwrapped. My thanks to Arion, McNicoll, Holly, Clemence, and Jonathan Harwood. For more from The Week, you need to visit theweek.co.uk, download The Weekday, which is our free iPhone app, or subscribe to the magazine at theweek.co.uk/subscribe. And you can hear brand new episodes of this by hitting subscribe in your podcast app of choice, or just search for us on iTunes, The Week Unwrapped. I've been Olly Mann. Our music is by Tom Morby, the producer Matt Hill at Rethink Audio. And until we meet again to unwrap next week, bye-bye.